This case filed today is really the first that has been brought that pertains to sexual abuse on the Native American reservations in Minnesota under the Child Victims Act. And so it's really the first chance for us, along with survivors and advocates, to really address the problem. And so we speak on behalf of this courageous survivor, John Doe, but on behalf of all of those kids on the reservation, many of whom are on the reservations, many of whom are now adults who have been violated by trusted spiritual and authority figures. And there's few people I know that can speak to that with greater power and authority than Lana Hunter. So I'd like to have you introduce yourself, Lana, and step to the podium and tell us more.
Good afternoon. My name is Lana Hunter, and I'm an advocate. I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse, and I'm also a member of the Sisseton Wahpeton Oyate Reservation. So we represent probably the South Dakota reservations, but I also want to stand before you for truth-telling and for justice. That this is probably the first time historically that we've been able to bring about change through justice in the way of filing a lawsuit. And I think Jeff Anderson has been a great ally for many survivors of child sexual abuse. And now I pray and hope that it is for survivors of Indian country, that this has gone on for far too many centuries, that it has not been addressed at the level that we believe will bring about change and justice and healing. This is a huge scope of issue on the reservation communities. We have on some communities 150% higher rates of suicide, and we know those are directly correlated to child sexual abuse, either as survivors, and they're now adults, or as children. Children as young as 6, 12, 13 are committing suicide. So this is an epidemic, and this is time to bring about the truth and to be able to come forward. As a survivor of child sexual abuse, I know the difficulty in Indian country it is to report these cases because of the shame and the deep pain and trauma that we feel as survivors. This is something that we have lived with for not just my lifetime, but for generations preceding us. And now we have an ability to come forward, and we want to bring hope and offer that this is an opportunity for us to speak together, to speak clearly, to bring about justice, to have this unspeakable, unmentionable sin be addressed in our communities. It is time. The time is now. The time is today. And this is about safety. This is about hope. This is about justice. And this is about being able to speak our truths as clearly and to understand that we have allies available and a law that is allowing for this to happen here in Minnesota, and probably the first time in America.
And Lana Hunter, you've identified yourself as a survivor of sexual abuse, and I think it's important for survivors of abuse to know that this John Doe's name is not known. And under the law, the Child Victims Act, a survivor, a man or woman, a boy or a girl, can come forward and use this law to get hope, help, healing, and justice to expose his or her offender in and off Indian country, and do so in a way that can bring them protection of their privacy. And you use your name because you choose to speak here on behalf of all those kids. And thank you for doing that and helping us better understand the scope and the depth of this problem. I think when we talk about Father Vincent Fitzgerald and the pattern and the saga of what are formerly been unspeakable crimes, rarely spoken of in the Native American community, this law gives permission to come forward. to speak truth to power.
Absolutely. And I think when we think about the scope of the problem in the community, that it has devastated many of our families and our homes and our lives. And just like Jeff mentioned, this courageous survivor has come forward. And I understand the reason why he may remain anonymous, because this is something that there is still a lot of shame in our community to be able to address. And, we want to be able to encourage survivors to come forward, but we understand that because of maybe not trusting systems, maybe not trusting the justice system, maybe not understanding this process that is occurring today, I want to encourage survivors, and for any survivor who has survived, even if you don't come forward, I feel and I understand your pain, and I know what you carry in the way of deep, deep hurt and trauma. And I want to give you hope and to be able to understand that this is not something that you can do alone, that this takes a community, and hopefully this is a step towards healing in the right direction. And to John Doe, I commend you and say thank you, Padamaya, Ganesh Chish, for coming forward. Responsibility, not as a community, but as relatives, to be able to continue the sacred trust that was given to us to care for our children. And in that scope, to understand that it is probably one of the most difficult processes in the Native community to come forward about these issues, because it is such a deep pain and a deep hurt. And I think that for justice to happen, we have to be able to understand that trauma at that level that we've experienced it as Indian people, as our community, but to also understand that is the healing. That is where we receive the greatest gifts, is to be able to come together as a community. So I want to encourage folks to be able to talk about this issue and to be able to bring forth change through their voice, one courageous act, one ability to speak about this hurt and pain and trauma. I mean, this has been going on for so long, not just in our communities, but in Indian country, across the United States, all the way up to Alaska, that this is something that we have dealt with for hundreds of years. And we can stop that today just by bringing forth the courage to speak about what we need to today.
And it is the Child Victims Act that now gives a survivor the opportunity to take his or her voice, privately bring it forth, and bring truth to power. And to this John Doe and to Lana Hunter, we're deeply grateful to every survivor who has the will and finds a place. And now under the law, there is a space that can be filled with truth and hope and promise and protection of our youth. And so we're grateful.